Hello and welcome to my presentation, which will go over my project that I created for LIS 6888, A Critical Perspective on Information and Cultural Conflict, Northern Ireland and Ireland. I created a website that houses the interviews that I did while I was in Northern Ireland and Belfast. This presentation will include a short process of how I created this site. It would also go into me explaining how to use the site, and it'll also just talk about how what I learned from this. So it should take probably about 15 minutes for me to go over everything, but I also left time for you to also be able to hear the interviews that range from, I have one librarian who it only was a 9-minute interview that I showed, and then one that is up to 25 minutes. And you will show what I mean when and you will know what I mean when I get to those pages. So first, I want to introduce you to my site. This is it. It's called Stories and Voices of Northern Ireland Librarians and Library Staff. I have 3 pages here that I will go over in just a second, but first I wanted to take you through the process of how I created this. So in Ireland, what I decided to use was just my audio recorder on my Android phone. It ended up being clearer than the actual device that I bought from Amazon, the Tascam recorder. So I carried this around, and whenever I could, I scheduled interviews or just did interviews while if time could accommodate it when we visited sites. So once I compiled and had my interviews, when I got back home, I realized that I needed to basically edit them, because I had at least 20 to 45-minute interviews that, of course, I could dump on a page and have you listen to, Dr. O'Connor, but I wanted to make sure to have them in a way that was digestible and understandable and, would get the point across. So what I ended up doing was using Audacity, which is actually on a lot of the UNCG computers. And I went to the digital commons at UNCG Library, Jackson Library, and got a good tutorial on it from one of the staff members there. And this was very user-friendly, and what it did was it allowed me to just copy and paste things into their site, and I could listen and edit it as I felt as I wanted to. And I noticed I do a lot of ums and ahs, so I did edit those out. You'll notice on a lot of them, but I had to keep some just to keep the clarity of the questions for some of the interviews. So once I had everything edited, I did also have to convert files from basically I had to make sure it was an MP3 file that I put into my website. So I used MediaHuman and Zamzar websites to convert, and these are free and very, also, I hate to keep using the word, user-friendly to use as well. Once I converted everything, I enjoy Wix.com, and so what I did was I created, I went to Wix.com. This is my main page, and I created my website. My website is, again, we'll go back to this page. This is it, and this is a picture of Belfast downtown area, as you can probably recognize. And when I enter the site, it's going to take me to my librarians that I interviewed. And so this is the page where you meet the librarians and the library staff. I interviewed a lot of, well, I wouldn't say a lot of information professionals, but I narrowed it down to these 5 because otherwise it was getting overwhelming, and I might use those interviews for a future project. So I interviewed Gavin Carville from the Lennon Library, Tracy McCloskey from Falls Road Public Library, Mary DeLargy from Lennon Hall as well with Gavin, And then Mark Knowles is from Schenkel Road Public Library, and Carol Conlon is from Armagh Robinson Library. So I will click on each page just to show you how to use it. So for Gavin's, let's do visit page. This is the main page, and you'll notice that I have different questions for each person. And the reason this happened was I'd be at a different stage in the focus of my project or the idea of what I wanted to do before an interview. And so a lot of the questions were catered towards that focus. Say if it was, oral history and the importance of oral history, or I went on to, want to focus on, another idea, maybe conflict in libraries, that kind of thing. My questions were sort of catered to that, which made each person have different questions. And it actually turned out to be a very good thing, because in the end, it didn't make everything so uniform that it became redundant. I was able to ask questions to these folks and get a good variety of questions. Some overlap, but others, are different and fit what I was focusing on, and also the field that these folks are in. I made sure to fit the question, some of the questions to the exact thing they do in the library and their focus in the library that they work at. So this is Gavin's page. For Gavin, I have about 19 minutes of interview for you to listen to, Dr. O'Connor. And he is the one that did the Divided Society project. And so his questions really are geared towards project managing, how to create and manage a digital collection. And then I do have some questions like neutrality and libraries relevance that are also, going to overlap with the others. As you notice then, after you listen to the interview, the different interviews, at the bottom of the page I have pictures of, there's Gavin here. This describes how many years he's been in the business and what his title is. And also, if you want to click here, it'll take you to the Divided Society project, which should be coming out pretty soon. Then you can also visit Lennon Hall Library site here. I couldn't take a lot of pictures, as I know you probably remember. We really couldn't take pictures of the digital collections items, the ephemeral items that were on the table that he had. So I really just used the pictures that I could. This was the office, and this is the Lennon Hall wall that that had some images of during the conflict and the Troubles. So that's Gavin, and then if you go back to librarians and library staff page, you then, if we go to Tracy McCloskey, this is her interview, which lasts about 25 minutes for you to listen to. She loved to talk. So her questions are geared towards Falls Road and the demographic that she works with. I kind of went over some of this in the presentation that Morgan, Hannah, Amy, and I did about 3 or 4 weeks ago. But this will focus on a little bit more of what she talked about. And again, some of the questions overlap, but I tried to fit the questions to the library as well. This is a picture of Tracy here, the amount of years she's been in the business, and her title, and of course, some of the images of Falls Road Library. And you can also visit the site here. Then, if we go back, Mary DeLargy is also from Lennon Hall Library. She was a very, very interesting lady. I really connected with her. Her interview is going to have a lot about history and storytelling, the Irish language, because she actually speaks Gaelic, Irish Gaelic, and her focus is actually in genealogy and Irish studies in upstairs in the Lennon Hall Library section of the library. So her story will come out in her interviews, and in her interviews last about 15 minutes. and you'll notice do surround her area of expertise in the Lennon Hall Library. Um, and she'll also speak a little Irish for you here and tell you her favorite phrase in Gaelic. I could have talked to her for hours. This is a picture of Mary. Again, the amount of years that she's been working in the business. Um, this is just in library. She also did library or research for about 10 to 15 years before that. Um, and then you can also um, visit the Lennon Hall Library site here. Now we'll go to Mark Knowles. And Mark, you also heard part of his interview in my presentation that, or our presentation we did about 4 weeks ago on this on the Ireland trip. And I talked to him a short amount of time. We only had a little bit of time to actually speak. So his interview is about 17 minutes long, or the stuff that I edited out for you to hear. And his questions are similar to Tracy's because we were dealing with the demographic of Shankill Road and Falls Road being of a lower working socioeconomic class neighborhood, and their their interviews actually complement each other because they're very similar, and it did show the divide and how they try to remain neutral where they are located with even just remnants of the troubles. Again, I have a picture of the librarian or the library staff member and the amount of years they worked, what they do, and then images from their library. And you can also visit their library site here. And last but not least, I did speak to Carol Conlon from the Armagh Robinson Library. And I spoke to her when it was during our lunch break, so her interview could have lasted forever. She's a very interesting woman, but I did have to only show you about 17 minutes of her interview. And she also, since the Armagh Library had so much history to it, it was similar to my interview with Mary DeLargy from Lennon Hall. We spoke about genealogy, we talked about Irish history, and what the Armagh Library is, what it stands for, the history that it has in general. So her interview was also very interesting in its focus. Here's again pictures of the Lennon Hall Library. I'm sorry, the Armagh Library, and you can also visit the site here. So let's go back. Well, let's go actually to the About page. This just shares, there's a big picture of me, about this project, kind of giving you a synopsis of my process and a short reflection on it. It also shares my background here. And I will probably do another 5-minute video just to do a short reflection on what I learned and how this will help cater and form my independent study that I also did for this class. Thank you, and I hope that you enjoyed this presentation and that it will give you a good idea of how to use my site and the process of creating my project. Thank you.